thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar called Gtmhub 101, Become an Expert in 60 Minutes. My name is Alex. I am a part of the customer success team at Gtmhub, and I'll be your host today. Also with us is Gtmhub's Chief Product Officer, Jenny Harold, who will be leading today's webinar.
So I'm going to kick it off with a story, one of my favorites of Alice in Wonderland. And there's a conversation between Alex and the Cheshire Cat. Alice says, "Would you tell me, please, which way I ought to go from here?" And the Cheshire Cat responds, "Well, that depends a good deal on where you want to get to." Alice says, "I don't much care where." And the Cheshire Cat responds, "Well, then it doesn't matter which way you go." And I think when we're going into work and we're doing our day-to-day stuff, a lot of times, maybe it's unclear which direction we want to go. Now imagine how that's compounded when you have a bunch of people probably thinking the same thing, which is why you're probably here and wanting to know more about objectives and key results, which is a way to focus and align everyone in an organization in the same direction. We're going to go through 6 different topics, really 5 today, from adopting and deploying Gtmhub and OKRs. We'll discuss how you can optimize your process, how to plan and act on initiatives that you may have in your organization and really bridge that strategy and execution gap. We'll go through how to track your progress as you make progress and how to successfully scale OKRs in your organization. So let's go ahead and kick it off. The first thing we're going to discuss, or topic 1, is adoption and deployment of Gtmhub and OKRs. We'll talk about 2 different topics. They're really the foundations of the product. The first is sessions, and we get asked, well, what is a session? What does that exactly mean? Sessions are a way to organize in time-bound periods your OKRs. You're able to distinguish OKRs from the past, let's say Q1 2020, the current session or the time period in which all of your OKRs might be aligned, which is Q2 2020, and look ahead and plan ahead, which could be, let's say, Q3 2020. You can align and correlate OKRs of different timeframes. So as an example, if you work with yearly or multi-year OKRs that are more strategic in nature, and you also work with more tactical quarterly OKRs, you can nest these in Gtmhub and see how all of these contribute to longer term or longer scope level goals. You're able to also customize in Gtmhub these various sessions or time-bound OKR periods so that you can highlight on which cadence or how often do you expect people to report or update their key results within that period. It could be weekly, it could be every 2 weeks as an example, it could be monthly. And you're also able to set permissions. And that's important because there might be in your organization some work that's being done, or someone's trying to, or a group of people are trying to achieve something. Let's say you have RD&E or research development and test and evaluation projects, or things that are kind of betting against the future. You kind of want to make sure everything's in a need-to-know basis. You still want to see how progress is being made. Let's say for all of that work and all of that goal setting, you're able to make those things private to a certain group of people. And we'll show you how that works. The other component of OKRs, besides here's a time frame in which I want to set everyone focused on a particular set of goals, is how do I create them? And we make it pretty easy in Gtmhub to get started. The basics are that you need to actually name your objective. Hopefully it's inspirational, it's of a qualitative nature, you want it to be memorable. As an example, I had a personal OKR at the beginning of this year in Q1 that was titled Jenny Brings Sexy Back. It wasn't in Gtmhub, but it is something that I had for myself. It inspired me, it helped me remember what it is that I wanted to achieve, and I was the owner. And so that's the second component of creating an objective, is you want to make sure that there's clear ownership defined, that someone really feels like and is responsible for the achievement of this particular goal. And then if you want to advance OKR setting, you can provide a short description of what it is that you're trying to do or accomplish. And a lot of times it's very useful if you're looking at organizational or department level goals where, let's say, a line manager or ICs or individual contributors in your organization may not understand what's happening. You could provide that description, and all of a sudden, you've scaled communication around your strategy in a really simple way. You can align objectives to other objectives. You can set different kinds of progress calculations, which we'll get to in the course of this webinar. You can make a private, an individual objective private, and you can add custom fields. In this case, we've added custom fields for plans and backgrounds. So if someone sets an OKR, they can enter, well, this is roughly the plan that I'm setting for myself to achieve this objective. And here's some additional context around why it is that we're trying to accomplish this. You can make those custom fields also mandatory or required fields so that you have consistency on how people are creating or crafting their objectives at the top. Now, the second component, obviously, of OKRs is that KR part, which is to create key results. And again, there's really clear basic rules for this. It needs to be clear, a quantitative measurement. So you're giving yourself this title. And you also want to select a key result type, of which we have 5. In this example, it's a should increase to. So let's say I have a key result that is at 2. It should increase to 5. I'm able to set that. So I have a target number of 5. My initial number is 2. And then there are 4 other kinds of key results that you can have. One that we have at the bottom of the list is Boolean. Did I achieve it or did I not? Or a yes or no type key result. And we ordered key results in Gtmhub like this on purpose because we want to make sure that everyone's following best practices and have key results that are actually measurable rather than I did it or not. You could also have advanced entries in the key results. So as an example, if you have a specific unit of measurement that you want to ascribe, it could be a percentage, a dollar value, or whatever custom value you want to add, which will show up when you update your key results. You can also provide an additional description of this key result. You can select a different owner. So you can have objectives that have a multitude of key result owners that are helping achieve that overall outcome. You could add deadlines. You can cascade key results. So if there is contributions, let's say, of other teams or other individuals toward a particular key result that's higher level, then you're able to see how that all is correlated. And you can also add custom fields. As an example, in this case, if you have a key result that's owned by the support team, maybe you have other collaborators that you need to identify in Gtmhub so that people know who to go to in reference or asking questions around this key result. So let's see how this actually works in the product. What you're seeing here is the hub view. This is where you land when you first get into Gtmhub. What I'll do is I'll go to OKRs and I'm going to actually create my session. So I'll first look and see, okay, I've got an annual session set up. I've got a Q2 and a Q1. So naturally it makes sense that I'm going to create a Q3 session. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to title that session or give it a name. It makes sense to continue with the convention, Q3 2020. And then I'm going to give a time frame upon which I want to make sure I achieve this goal. And so we'll start in July and then we'll end at the end of September. I'm going to apply what I just added as my time frame. I have 3 statuses to choose from. The first is open, which means that people can edit, delete, create OKRs. It could be in progress, which means that I've locked it, or I can archive it, which means we're done with this. I'll change a color. I'll add a parent session because Q3 naturally nests into the annual session so that I can continue with that convention of nesting. I can also dictate what kind of cadence. In this case, I'm going to choose every 2 weeks. That's when I expect everyone in this session to update their key results. I can add a workflow, which means that approvals can be done by 1 or 2 individuals for this session. And I can customize my permissions of who can actually see it or who is able to access it. In this case, I'm going to choose 2 teams, or actually a team and a role. So everyone who's in the company team, which is execs, and anyone of an admin role is able to access this session. So I'm going to go ahead and create it. I'm going to go ahead and save this. And then you see that we have a Q3 2020 session that has limited access, and you can see how everything ladders up. Since we're done with Q1, I'm going to go ahead and archive this. So I'm going to change the status of this to archived and then save my session. So now our sessions are set. Great. Now I need to actually create some OKRs in Q3 so I can plan ahead a little bit. So I'll show you how to create an objective. Really easy. You click on the big blue button in the center of the screen, and then you're going to give yourself some objective title like we've discussed. In this case, we want top of the line SaaS metrics to be our objective title. And then we're going to add an owner, which can be company. I can type that in, and then I can select from the list. I can align this objective, but I'll save that for later. I have a choice of progress calculation or different privacy settings, but I'm just going to go ahead with the basics. I'm going to go ahead and save. And now we've created our objective. Now we have to add some actual measurements so that we can figure out how we're going to define success. So I'm going to add key results. And I'm going to enter a title for said key result. We want to hit 10% month-over-month growth. That seems pretty aggressive. I'll give myself a should increase to value, but I have the other options like I mentioned. So we'll go with should increase to. I'll add a target, like what am I trying to achieve? That's that 10%. And then my initial number, which right now we're at 5.5%, which is not bad, but we want to push. And then I'll add a unit of measurement, which is percentages. I can add different collaborators, like I mentioned before, so that people can know in the system who's actually responsible for this, because maybe the company team needs additional help from other departments. So I'll highlight those collaborators here, and then I'll hit save. And there we have it. Now we have our first key result that's associated with top of the line SaaS metrics, and we're set. This is really cool when you're trying to figure out how you're going to align across sessions. So I clicked on alignment so I could see the tree of all of the OKRs we have relative to the annual 2020 session. And remember, we can work in multiple time periods and see how it nests. But what I want to do is I want to drag and drop this particular OKR and map it to an annual session, which is insane growth, because that's where I think contextually it belongs. And you saw how easy that was. And you're able to then ensure that everyone in the organization, when they're starting out, can see how the alignment is happening between an annual session and what you're trying to do in Q3 relative to what you want to do over the course of the year. So we've covered part one. We're on to part two. How are you going to configure your OKRs process? And what about progress calculations? Are there anything that are special around that? We're going to go through that in a little bit. The first is, how do I configure my account? That seems pretty obvious. You want to be able to define your methodology in Gtmhub. And there are 4 components to that, more or less. The first is ownership. Who can actually own objectives, key results, or tasks? Those are 3 major elements in Gtmhub. Objectives are those goals, key results are the measurements to call success or fail against those overall goals to achieve those outcomes. And tasks, which are the things that we're going to actually do the effort. And it could be done by employees. You can select that only teams can own these things, or you can do the blended approach where employees and teams can own any bits of any of these things. The second is that cadence. And then based on that cadence, you can set reports or notifications concerning the progress of your OKRs and when things need to be updated. And that's super flexible in Gtmhub. We have different ways that we can prompt people to even be notified to update. It could be through email, you can do it through Slack, or you can do it through MS Teams. And then the scales, right? The other component of OKRs that are often used are confidence levels. And basically, that's being able to normalize the ambition of your organization. Because if you're trying to say that this is a stretch goal, well, what is success for a stretch goal? For a lot of teams, that's 0.7 out of a scale from 0 to 1. You're able to set that. And then you can actually set it numerically, but you can use emojis if you want. You can use text if you want to define how your confidence scales will appear in the UI. And then lastly, you want to be able to set limits sometimes. I mean, depending on your organization, you don't want people to overly like tax themselves and kind of go ballistic in creating objectives and key results. So you're able to really quickly say, well, we think that in our organization, a maximum of 3 objectives per individual or team seems reasonable. So we're going to put that cap, and then that's a system-wide setting where if people breach that, then they're going to have to rethink what are the top 3 things that they're going to actually focus on in this quarter. The second part of this particular section has to do with OKR progress calculation. And we're going to demystify what this actually looks like or rolls up today. There are 3 ways to ladder up progress in Gtmhub. The first is the default setting. When you set a series of OKRs, the default is that each OKR is actually holistic and can stand on their own. So what you're looking at is an average of all the key results will result in that the overall progress of that objective. The second method, which was recently released, is the ability to have an objective be calculated as the average of any sub-objective that is aligned to that main objective. This is an optional setting. It's good for demonstrating the combined contributions toward that one outcome, and it supports this methodology or this best practice of being able to set bi-directional goals, where an organization can say, this is what we need to achieve, here's the outcome we want. Teams or departments, how do you want to ladder up to this overall goal? And then the last, which is very nuanced, I would say, is the ability to cascade a key result. Again, this is also for demonstrating combined contributions toward an outcome, but it's very specific to a key result. And we're going to showcase how that actually looks in the product. And it depicts that combined progress toward that particular key result. So what you see in Gtmhub is the ability to be kind of flexible within reason of how it is that you want to set up OKRs and alignment and how progress is actually going to ladder up. So let's see how that actually looks in Gtmhub. So we are in the annual session right now. We'll look at the alignment screen for a moment. And in alignment, we see we've got this annual and the newly created Q3 2020 session. If I zoom out, all of these colors ascribe to what the actual session is, so you can see how that looks over time. This yellow one was the one that we created for Q3 2020. I'm going to filter this particular view based on company because that's what I want to be able to kind of get straight first before I let this loose to the team to be able to align our Q3. So you'll notice that there are a lot of different options in the sidebar, but we're not going to go into too much detail about that today. What I started with when I was thinking through it is, it'd be cool if we had insane growth at a company level and we had a series of key results. So what you're seeing here is an OKR that is holistic, that is all of those key results that in the average of which produces the overall insane growth progress, which is 4%. But I was like, that's kind of really too tight of a definition for how we're going to achieve it. So I'm going to make it so that this key result instead is the average of its sub-objectives. And that's what you see here is insane growth is calculated as the average of the 4 OKRs that are aligned to that particular objective. And so when you do that calculation, you end up with 13%. And when you edit an objective, you have the ability to change which one you want to have as your progress calculation, depending on how you want to set it in your organization. And again, we see this a lot when you're trying to set organizational level goals or department level goals, and then you have a bunch of teams or people that are working toward that. Now, the last method we discussed is cascading of key results. In this case, we want to recruit top talent, and we need to hire 42 people. These 2 aligned objectives where we need to help the engineering team scale and we need to build a world-class sales team, they all contribute. So what you can see in the OKR itself is it's the average of those key results. And then we're going to see how those key results are connected. And remember, we're looking at hire 42 people in this example. So if I edit this key result, I have an option of being able to cascade. I can select this. Here, I've set it to yes. So the value will be updated only by the contributing key results that are connected or aligned to this key result. So hire 42 people was what we were looking at. And you see here that hire 30 people belongs to the engineering team. And then the sales team want to hire 3 SDRs and 9 AEs. And so as the engineering team and the sales team update their key results, the overall key result of hiring 42 people will be updated. And you can see the math here, and you can see how that's connected in the tool. So we're on to stage 3 or part 3 of this webinar, where we want to be able to plan and act on our initiatives. And you're able to express effort alongside your OKRs in Gtmhub, which I think is very useful for me when I'm thinking through how I'm going to plan on my to-dos, how I'm going to think through my work, and how do all of these things align to what I want to achieve in my quarter. And we find other customers think this is really helpful when they're thinking through their work as well. So we use tasks in Gtmhub to be able to connect our goals and our effort. So we've talked through our OKRs. Tasks is that part where you're going to break down your work and achieve those outcomes. And because you're working with tasks every day, likely, you're wanting to review how you're approaching your work. And it's kind of nice to have it all in one place. Another thing you can do in Gtmhub is to link Jira so that, let's say you have an issue like an Epic here, revamp the web app, and these will appear as tasks associated with OKRs as well. So let's see how that actually looks in the product. So again, I've landed myself in the hub, which is the main screen where you're going to update your OKRs on a regular basis based on the cadence that you've set. So I'm clicking on recruit top talent. We saw our objective, we got our key result, and now we've got our section for tasks. Since our team is growing, we need to kind of secure a larger office space, but I'm thinking we also need to refine how our onboarding is done. So I'll set a task for refining our onboarding plan. I'm going to assign this to me, and I can add that as a task. And now this task is associated, or this effort is associated with this OKR. In the hub, you can look at your OKRs, but you can also look at all of your tasks. And some of those tasks may be associated with your OKRs, and some of them might not be. And that's okay. And so what we can see here is a Kanban view, but you can also look at it at a list level and see what the status is of all of your to-dos. You can change those statuses. You can create new tasks from here that are unattached to an OKR. And that makes it easy so that you're not having to think through the lens of all of the things with OKRs. You can see a blended view. So we need to make some swag bags for our new employees. I don't think that needs to be attached to an OKR, but I can. And I do need to submit a proposal pretty soon on the offers that we've received concerning the office that we want to expand into. I can attach this to an OKR if I want. I can add a due date. But in this example, I decided I don't need to do that. But that's where you can do this. And then the second thing we'll go through real quick is then how does Jira look like when you're trying to connect Jira items in Gtmhub? We have the ability to have a bi-directional hookup, which is really cool. So we want to be #1 product in the market. That's an annual goal for us. And we want to push our team to really ship some good stuff. And it's a pretty aggressive number given our team size, let's say. We're going to release 50 new feature epics. And so I can add a task like you saw before. I can go to Jira. So I'm transitioning into Jira. And here you see a bunch of stuff that I need to do. And here's an epic that I just newly created to unify filters across the product. And that's something the team needs to be working on. It's already selected for development. Once I have this link between Jira and Gtmhub, I can simply click here in the side and then link it to the OKR that I want to show up as a task. I already know where that belongs. It's that #1 product in the market. And then once I've made that link, I can see in my Jira ticket that objective as the numbers appear in Gtmhub as well. So it's kind of cool to be able to see how your contributions work between Jira and between Gtmhub. I'm going to refresh my screen so I can see that change. Give it a moment to load. And then if I scroll down, boom, there it is. I want to unify filters across the product. It's in the state selected for development. And now I can see how everything is linked together between what effort the team is doing to support the release of the 50 new feature epics. And then we can see how that actually looks like in Jira as well. So part 4, how do you effectively track the progress that you make in Gtmhub? And there are different ways you can do that. We'll go through how we're going to make OKRs a habit, because this is where it gets super powerful, is when people are changing the way they think about their work and how they approach their to-dos. They're making a habit about achieving their goals. And this is when the magic, I think, really happens. The first place you can go is obviously the product. We've shown the hub a few times. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but this is where everyone will land. And once they've created their OKRs, once they've gotten those approved in the system, if you've set an approval workflow in place and it's actually been approved, then they'll go here, hopefully on a weekly or a bi-weekly basis, to update their OKRs. But we also have integrations with Slack, so you can bring those OKRs into your daily conversation, as well as MS Teams. MS Teams is what I'm going to actually demonstrate today, so you can see how that works. So let's see how that actually looks. So I've created here in MS Teams an engineering channel or engineering team, and then a channel for engineering OKRs. And this is where we're going to chat about our OKRs. If I go to the bottom menu bit, I can easily add the app, our Gtmhub app, to MS Teams. And then I can actually invoke Gtmhub really easily by just typing in Gtmhub. And then I can preview my OKRs. We want to help the engineering team scale. That's something that we need to update. That's something we'll focus on. And so I can share that here. And then let the team know, hey, let's be sure to update this if I need to prompt them a bit more before close of business today. Once I post this, after I add an emoji because I love emojis, now it's shared with everyone who's in the engineering OKRs channel. All of these are links also, so I can click on any given one of these key results. And we'll give it a moment to load. And I'm going to land in Gtmhub so that I can see the progress that's been made to date, any notes that have been made relative to this key result, and I can update from here. We're going to switch back to MS Teams for a moment so I can show you another thing you can do, which is to embed Gtmhub in MS Teams. So a way to do that is to just add a tab. So we're going to change the tab name to Gtmhub. I posted or pasted the URL. I could post this to the channel, which I did. And then give this a moment to actually hook up. And so now when anyone goes to the engineering OKRs channel, if I want to be able to access Gtmhub, I'm able to do that really quickly and easily and navigate as if I were, because I am connected to the website, and I'm able to view all of the things I'm normally able to view since I'm authenticated. All right. So we're on to step 5. It's the home stretch. We want to be able to successfully scale our OKRs process. And this is really how we're going to define how we're doing. And the 2 ways that you can do this real easy out the box in Gtmhub is we provide process reports and performance reports. So process reports are a way for you to understand how your organization is doing at running OKRs, right? Is there anybody that has too many? Are people not updating? These are the type of questions you'll be able to answer via that report. And then the one that most people probably want to go to is performance report. And that gives you a high-level overview of the progress by team, by session, and you can drill down and understand how people are updating their confidence levels if you've set them during the course of a session. But we also want to make sure that Gtmhub scales, and people do forget to update, or they have a hard time getting access to their data. So we wanted to make a way to make updating even easier. And the way to do that is by connecting your business systems where your data would live so that you can automatically update your key results. And in Gtmhub, we call that dynamic key results. By doing this, you're making your data accessible for everyone. People are able to have their key results updated automatically. And so when they're actually providing updates, they can provide the narrative and they don't have to hunt and peck for the numbers. And it becomes a single source of truth. You don't ever have to worry about whether or not something's up to date or if the numbers are correct, because you can see in the system when somebody had updated it. And by that somebody, we mean it could be Salesforce, Jira, HubSpot, what have you. And so I'm going to briefly show you how this actually looks in Gtmhub. So we have this company OKR where we're going to support the sales team because we think it's important that executive presence is a part of our conversations with our prospects. So you see here a manual key result. And that's, you can tell because it says this big blue button that says update. But there's another one called call activities. This is a key result that has no update button. Well, why is that? The reason why is because we hooked this up to Salesforce and it's dynamically updating. So we're going to go and see for a moment how this data source looks. So this is when you've connected a data source like Salesforce. There's all kinds of things that you can connect. For the purposes of this demo, these are the things that I've hooked up in advance. For example, Salesforce opportunities. So here are all the opportunities that we have in Salesforce right now. When I go back to Gtmhub and I click on Salesforce opportunity, which I've hooked up already, I can see how everything's mapped. So here are all of the bits of data that are in Gtmhub and how that actually appears or is mapped to Gtmhub. I can preview that data as well. I can also view what's happened to it, like the last time it synced. And I can also see the name of each of those fields, the titles that are given, and then the data type. When I have Salesforce hooked up with Gtmhub, I can create some insight boards. Just think of these as dashboards, and it's being fed by Salesforce data. So I have 2 insight boards. One is for activities. And we're going to give this a moment to load. So once it's there, we noticed here that calls is added. You see a big circle. That's our avatar for company in this account. But we're going to contribute to a bunch of emails. We're just going to email a bunch of people and do a lot of follow-ups because we think that it can also contribute or be a metric that we can use to call success. It could lead to the outcomes that we want. So we're going to support the sales team. I'm picking the OKR. That's what I'm doing right now. And it's giving that same title, email activities. I'm going to keep the key result type should increase to. The initial number was 17. We're going to try to do 200 emails in this quarter. It's owned by the company. We'll hit save. And then now I have connected via Salesforce a dynamic key result that will contribute to this overall goal. And so that's it. We have successfully gone through the basics and some of the more advanced features of Gtmhub. There are different ways that you can contact us if you're curious. If you're not a customer and you're interested in Gtmhub, please email us at sales@gtmhub.com. If you want to look us up or read any of our content that we write about OKRs, we write about OKRs and goal setting and strategy and execution a lot. Check us out in LinkedIn. And if you're curious about all of the different things that are happening with Gtmhub, the company, we're also tweeting a bunch at Gtmhub. But if you're specifically interested in what's happening with product, which might even include things like bugs that we've fixed or different UX improvements we've made. So things that aren't like the really big epics that or features that we're shipping. Check us out and join the conversation at Gtmhub product.
Thank you, Jenny,
Thanks.
for that great presentation and demo.